welcome to episode 74 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, today we wanted to talk about, in our Would You Rather, would you rather read by a fireplace or on the beach? I feel like I have too many opinions for this.
See, I feel like, so we live in a place where beaches, not that we don't have very many, but the ones we have in our immediate vicinity are like rocky
and cold.
And like not, and cold. Yeah. Like it, you know, it's the summer. It doesn't get super, super hot.
No, it's like the Atlantic Ocean too, so it's just cold anyway.
Yeah. So for me, beachside reading doesn't really happen that often. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I can't make a fair decision just because I haven't read on the beach enough. But I will say I prefer a fireplace.
Yeah, that's fair.
For a couple of reasons. Mm-hmm. First one, you're cozy.
Yeah.
You can have your nice hot coffee or a glass of wine if you prefer. You could be all like snuggly and sitting in a comfy chair with your book next to your fire. Yeah. Two, I feel like reading on a beach would not be comfortable. So, if you're on a sandy beach, you could be getting sand in places that you don't want sand. Yeah. You know, like, if you're on a blanket or a towel, that means you're lying down, so you're, like, propped up on your elbows, which gets uncomfortable. Or then you roll over on your back and you're trying to read holding the book up, in which case you could drop it on your face. Like, it's sunny out, so, like, there could be a glare on the page. I just...
also have many opinions.
Like... Also, for us, we have to take wind into account. Mm-hmm. You could have wind blowing the pages all over the place. Like, I just feel like the fireplace is a better option.
I get that.
And if you're feeling snacky, you can just, like, walk to your kitchen and get something.
That's true. Yeah, it's a hard one. I really like the idea of being on a beach and reading. Like, it's a very appealing idea, but I fry like a motherfucker. So, like, being on a beach for me is a disaster at all times.
Same. I was literally out in, like, 25-degree weather a couple weeks ago on the beach. I burned in an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. I was, like, and it hurt. Yeah. I was in pain.
I currently am having an allergic reaction to the sun. And when I go out now, I need to wear a long sleeve shirt, and my hands have a rash on them, and my whole upper arm, like, it's wild. I don't know what's happening, but it's not great. So, yeah, I'd need shade. But then, yeah, I was once in Florida for vacation, and I had a book, and the pages started falling out because it was so hot. It was melting the, like, glue that keeps the pages in. Yeah, so that was devastating because books. But, yeah, so I think I'd have to pick fireplace, too. And it's just so nice when it's, like, getting cold and, like, it's still October and, like, Halloween is coming up and you're still excited about life and you haven't gotten into, like, the seasonal depression yet.
Yes!
It's just so nice to sit by a fireplace and read.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, I think both of us are saying fireplace all the way.
Yeah, that's our thoughts. Yeah, if you guys have any opinions, you can definitely let us know. Send us a message. Just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy.
So this is our last week with Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. We are reading chapters 30 to 45 this week. So it's going to be a jam-packed, fun-filled week of endings.
Yeah.
I guess.
So much happens. We say it every week.
So much.
We'll continue to say it. Because it's true.
Well, and it's just, too, that, like, everything is cluing up. Like, in the last book, we didn't have to deal with a bunch of clue-ups. Like, we still did, but it wasn't... We ended on a cliffhanger because we could, because there was another book.
Yeah.
But now, this is it. It's only a duology. There's nothing else coming, as far as we know, about this story. So everything needed to be clued up in a way that was satisfying.
Yeah.
So, brace yourselves. So last week we finally have, and I say finally, but we have Van Eck and Pekka Rollins thinking that they've got Kaz and the crew all beat. Mm-hmm. They foiled their stupid sugar plan. They also, like, chased after them all while they're trying to do their little jobs. Mm-hmm. And now they are hiding out. Everybody in Ketterdam is out looking for them. The Stad Watch, all the other gangs, mm-hmm. they've all been deputized, so everybody is looking for them. So they think they've got Kaz and the crew beat. However, Kaz and the crew have a plan. They are going to swindle the Merchant Council out of their money, give it to the Ravkins so that they can auction and purchase Kuwei when the crew auction him off.
Yep.
So we ended last week with Van Eck and another guy, Carl Dryden, who's the youngest member of the Merchant Council. He's actually an important character. So remember his name. They had a meeting with Jesper's dad, who is pretending to be this guy, Johannes Rietveld. And they are going to invest in his Yurda consortium. But, you know, it's not real.
It's not real. Spoilers!
Anyway, and Nina was there, and she handed Van Eck his ass and, like, made him have to cover for himself, and it was great.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So, we start this week in Kaz's point of view. So, he knows that, like, everybody is pretty exhausted, right? Like, they've literally been on the go for, like, a month straight, right? They went and did the ice court job, they came back, they were ambushed, they had to work on getting Inej back, and now they're into this disaster. So, like, they have not been able to relax and have a break, so everybody is tired. And, like, he's tired too. And, like, he said that, like, he lid down to, like, think over the plan, and he fell asleep. And he's like, shit. Like, he thinks he doesn't have time.
Fair.
So, he also thinks about, so he went to the dregs last week and managed to get the dregs back on his side. So, he is now the official leader of the dregs gang. And so, but in order to do that, he had to get, like, his ass kicked, essentially.
Yeah.
So, Jenya, the tailor, the Ravkin tailor, ended up tailoring some of his injuries to make them less bad.
Yeah.
To make them better. But all he could think about was how excruciating it was to handle her touch. Mm-hmm. So she does need to touch your face lightly. Like, she doesn't go crazy with it. But, like, she does have to touch your skin lightly in order to fix things.
Yeah.
And so he was like, it was excruciating. Like, it was bad. He also thought about his chat with Sturmhond, who is, like, a privateer who is in the auction on behalf of Ravka. And they had a private chat because he needed to know that Ravka would be actually committed to the auction and legit trying to win it. Mm-hmm. Because they are really putting Kuwei up for sale. That is not a joke, right? Like, that is not a pretend thing. They actually are auctioning him off. So if Ravka if Ravka isn't super committed to actually, like, win, then they've already lost.
Yeah.
Because they do want to protect Kuwei. So Sturmhond agreed to the scheme and sort of asked Kaz, like, and Kaz asks Sturmhond, like, who he really is. Because he was like, thieves and sailors don't talk like you.
Yeah, and they also don't have the blessing of a king to, like,
no,
go to an auction on their behalf.
No. And he also says that, like, he can tell that he has the look of, like, a rich man's son. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't look like he suffered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think, especially in this time period of this, like, fantasy universe, we can say that, like, you know, people that were poorer-ish and less fortunate probably have signs of, like, disease, like, teeth issues, maybe pox marks, like, scarring, that sort of thing. So, the idea that this guy is, like, the picture of health, sort of, Kaz knows that he's not who he says he is.
Yeah.
And we learn now, and again, if you had read Shadow and Bone, the whole series, you would know that Sturmhond is actually the alias of King Nikolai of Ravka. He's been using it for years. He was the second son. He wasn't actually supposed to rule. So it was the alias he used to, like, go out traveling and, like, sowing his oats, we'll say.
Not in a sexual way.
No, not in a sexual way. But apparently he's, you know, like, in an adventuring sort of a way.
Yeah.
And he's developed a reputation that goes along with it. Because, like, Kaz knew he was Sturmhond and knows who Sturmhond the privateer is. But obviously he can't travel as King Nikolai at this moment in time. Like, Ravka is sort of still in turmoil. You know, there are people that would claim his crown, claim his throne, and, like, they're just super poor right now, so it's not a good idea for him to be traveling.
No, and, like, we already heard of that one chick that is fighting Inej. She's, she already has said that she is an heir and, like,
yeah,
trying to get the throne, basically.
Yeah. So after that meeting, so, like, he's like, oh my god, he's like, I had a meeting with the King of Ravka. So the meeting is over. He's satisfied. He goes to find Nina and Jesper instead. Jesper asks him that if things go sideways, like if things don't go as planned, then Kaz should give Jesper the parem. He knows that Kaz has some because Matthias gave it to him. And he just says, like, he doesn't want to let his father down again. So, like, if things go wrong, give him the parem. He'll use his fabricator powers and he'll save them.
Yeah.
But Kaz refuses, obviously.
Yeah.
He's a good friend, I'll say.
In this moment, yeah, he's doing it because he doesn't want Jesper to, like, go down the same path that Nina did. Like, he's doing it because he likes Jesper. Yeah.
He says that he doesn't want Jesper to make himself a martyr. And thinks that, like, you know, I don't want you to, like, sacrifice yourself for everyone and then you'll, like, have the upper hand and be like, well, I sacrificed myself for everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and he also tells him, like, his father loves him more than the farm. So, like, his father would obviously rather lose the farm.
Yeah.
Than gain him. Lose him.
It's kind of surprising because, like, it also shows that Kaz must love him more than he loves money if he's refusing to give him this in case things go sideways. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, I feel like we knew that anyway because for Kaz to call Jesper Geordie when they were fighting, like, indicates that he sees Jesper, like, as a brother, I think.
Which is so sad.
So Jesper then asks him, like, who is Geordie? Like, earlier when we were fighting, you called me Geordie. Who is that? And Kaz tells him that it was someone he trusted that he didn't want to lose.
No.
So, like, that tells us enough, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if he accidentally called him Geordie, then that means that he is also somebody that he trusts that he doesn't want to lose.
Yeah.
So Kaz wakes up Nina, and him, Nina, and Inej head out of the hotel. So it's nighttime. It's like the middle of the night. So they're hoping traffic is a little bit less, and they're hoping they don't get stopped by the police. They plan on going to the morgue. So that's where the rich dead people go to await being transported out of town to the cemeteries. So there are obviously, we've said before, there are no cemeteries in Ketterdam proper. If you die, you go straight onto the dead people barge where they burn your body.
Yeah.
So the rich people, though, they can afford to be buried outside the city limits. So Kaz is like thinking, obviously, they get to the morgue, and he hates being around the dead people, like the dead bodies. It makes him really uncomfortable, obviously.
Yeah.
And he thinks right back to the time with Geordie and how badly he can't, like, how much he can not bear human touch. And he thought to himself that, like, when it first started and he realized he couldn't bear human touch, he sort of thought that it would get better with time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually gotten worse and worse. And, like, I wonder, I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I don't know how to deal with any of the shit that he's had to deal with. But, like, I almost wonder if, and I know that, like, I'm about to talk about it now, how he tried to overcome it and couldn't, so he just accepted it about himself.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like trying once to do something, like, maybe give him another couple months and then try again, like...
Yeah, it was just a weakness when he couldn't have weaknesses. So then, but then it just, like, once he got the gloves, he was like, now I don't need to worry about it. So, yeah. He could have done more, but I think he was just trying to live.
Yeah. So he thinks about one night when he had to help carry somebody, like a fellow member of the gang, home after the guy got drunk. And so he had his arm, so it was him and another guy trying to carry this guy in the middle. So the guy had his arm slung over Kaz's, like, shoulders. And he said that the feel of his arm against his skin made him physically nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, caused him to lock himself in the bathroom all night. And the next day, he bought his first pair of gloves. And, like, now he'll never take them off.
Yeah.
And, like, he even practiced doing his sleight of hand with the gloves on. Like, he already knew how to do it with gloves off, but he relearned everything so they could do it while wearing them. And, like, we're going back. He remembers after that event, he was 14. He met a girl named Imogen who casually worked jobs with the dregs. He admitted he thought she was hot. And, like, he sort of had a crush on her. And, like, he said he liked the way she walked and smiled. Because he was thinking about how, like, people assumed that because he couldn't bear human touch, maybe he just didn't like people like that. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe he was just not into romance at all.
Yeah.
But, like, he says that he does feel it. Like, he does have feelings for people. And he does have, like... they were trying to insinuate that he does get turned on and does, like, get the urge to have sex, like, kiss, you know. He has the urges to do those things, but he physically can't.
Yeah.
So, like, he's remembering this girl from when he was 14 and how, like, she would smile at him and sort of be suggestive. So, like, he wanted to best this weakness he had, and so that he could kiss her. Mm-hmm. and more, he thought, right?
Yeah.
And so he thought he would start small and work up to it. So one night he was sent with another guy to rough up somebody who owed Per Haskell money. So he decided to beat him up with no gloves on. And that went terribly. He was absolutely repulsed, but he was determined to overcome it. But, like, he was so stricken with this feeling that he was back in the water with Geordie's body that he accidentally let the guy get away. And so he had damaged his reputation in the process of this because the guy that went with him didn't think he was reliable. He didn't show the guy that owed Per Haskell the money that he was a force to be reckoned with. So the process made him realize that he had to become twice as ruthless and, like, twice as mad, and just, like, he could not show any sort of weakness. So he never took the gloves off again. And that's it. That's his story of the gloves, right?
Makes sense.
So all this time he's thinking about this. They're in the morgue. So Nina opens a drawer, which has a body in it, and she gets something, we don't know what at this point, and puts it in a container. And they go back to the hotel. They're starting everything. I guess the auction starts in the morning. So the plan is for Wylan and Combe to go to an empty bakery to wait for the auction. Nina is going to go to the barrel, and Inej is going to the auction site, and she's going to sit on the roof and watch everything from up there. Kaz and Matthias are going to go with Kuwait and be escorted by the Stadwatch to the auction as his protectors. So I guess he thinks about Geordie at this moment and how he let him down. Like, Kaz let Geordie down by letting Pekka best him at Van X. But he's also finally coming to grips with Geordie also let him down.
Yeah.
Because he was supposed to protect him and both of them, but sort of let his greed get the better of him. And it destroyed both of them.
Yeah.
And, like, as much as I agree with this, I also, like, Geordie was, what, 15, 14?
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't old enough to take care of him. Like, they should have stayed at the friggin' farm.
But there was nobody there.
But, like,
they sold the farm because they didn't have any money. They had to leave. That's the money that they were swindled out of, was the money.
No, I know, but
you can't just live on a farm if you can't.
I mean, if they could have worked it.
How are they going to work it at that age? Like, they can work, but they can't do everything. They can't pay people. Like,
no, maybe. I just, like, I feel like they were. What were their plans when they... I don't know. I just feel like they could have easily gotten a job somewhere out in the countryside rather than going into a city notorious for swindling people.
Yeah, I don't know if the country is much better.
I don't know. I just feel like it was not a good decision.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, besides the point, I just feel like it's good of Kaz to realize that, hey, maybe Geordie wasn't such a saint. Like, maybe he has a hand in this, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he needed to realize that.
Yeah. But also, like, Geordie was still only a child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were both just looking for somebody to tell them what to do and protect them and be, like, a parental figure in their life. And for 24 hours, Pekka Rollins displayed that, so.
Yeah.
Skip to Wyland's point of view. So, he is getting ready to leave with Combe for the bakery, and he's decided that he's finally done running. Like, his father wanted him to disappear, well, like, because he had planned on taking his mother and leaving Catterdam, right? Mm-hmm. But he was like, no, my dad wants me to go away so that he can live this, like, perfectly happy postcard life. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to hide anymore.
Yeah.
So he's decided he's finally going to make a stand and show up and be there. So, him and Colm go to the bakery. It's normally open, but because of the auction, it's closed. So I guess the auction's a big enough deal that businesses are closed. Apparently they were there for like hours, and they chatted a little bit about Jesper, and Colm actually said a really sweet thing. He said that Jesper is trouble, but he's worth it. And he didn't know if Jesper was good for Wylan, but he knows that Wylan is good for Jesper, which is cute. Like, I guess he sees what's blossoming between the two of them.
Yeah, it is sweet.
So they hear the back door open, and Wylan goes to see who it is, because obviously no one's supposed to be in there. And someone grabs him and puts a hood on him. And he hears them speaking, and he knows that they are going in search of Van Eck.
Hey.
They're bringing him to his dad. Yeah. And he thinks that they're dime lions. So they bring him inside a building and they tie him to a chair, and his father shows up and pulls the bag off of his head. And he tells him that he knows that Kaz is working with the Ravkins because apparently he saw Inej with Jenya and Zoya. So he is offering to set Wylan up somewhere with an allowance to tell Van Eck what they're planning.
Yeah.
And, like, he should know not to trust his father. Because the last time he promised to do that, he tried to have him killed.
Really, though. I think he learned.
Yeah. So his answer is to spit in his father's face.
Fair.
Yeah. And so Van Eck tries again. And Wylan then brings up his mother, which causes Van Eck to, like, be like, oh, shit. So he doesn't want to deal with Wylan, obviously, because, well, one, he's disgusted by his son, and two, he doesn't want to have to answer for what he did to Maria?
Maria, I think, yeah.
Maria. So he tells the two dime lions to do whatever they want to Wylan, but make sure that he has answers for him before the start of the auction in an hour. So essentially giving them the okay to torture him into telling them the plan.
Yeah.
So they start to beat him and torture him, and apparently he says, like, he tries to stay stoic, but in the end, like, he's not brave like Kaz or Matthias or Jesper. He's just Wylan. So he tells them everything.
Sin.
It is a sin. Because, like, I don't know. I feel bad for him.
I do
Poor
too.
thing.
But you're also
like,
just like, his father is such a dick.
Yeah. And, like, no, it's not. It's not surprising at all. But, like, what if they cut off his fingers?
Yeah, I don't think he would have let them get that far.
Maybe not.
Only because, like, flute and piano and...
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, like...
He would have broken before that. But you can't even really be mad at him because, like, he's not... Like, he already said, he's not tough like the rest of them. He wouldn't be able to survive that. Yeah.
Well, like, it's funny because he said that, like, last week when he was talking about how he ended up in the barrel... And it was talking about how, like, the first little room that he had rented was, like, apparently he was having, like, a really, like, he was feeling really down. And he thought to himself, oh, I wish I could ring for tea. Yeah. And then he was like, oh my god, I'm such an idiot. Like, here I am, like, with no money, stuck in, like, this squalid room, and I want to ring for tea. Like, how sheltered am I?
Yeah.
So, like, that's the thing. Like, he is a very sheltered boy, so it would make sense.
Yeah. Sin.
Yeah. Anyway, so move on. Now it's Inez's point of view. So she has to sneak into the Church of Barter, which is where the auction is being placed, or being held. So she manages to sneak in. She, like, rides underneath this, like, cart of lumber and, like, they just wheel her right in, and she just makes her way up one of the towers and makes her way up to the roof. So she's got Jesper's rifle strapped to her back, and then she, like, climbs up to the very top of the church, and she sets up the gun somewhere before she heads to the top of the spire to set up some explosives for that Wylan made. It's like their backup plan, essentially. And then she sets up in a little corner where she can watch, like, the proceedings and watch what goes on. And she watches everybody file in. So first, like, the merchants from Kirch, who really have just come to watch. Like, they're not serious bidders, so they've just come to, like, watch the proceedings. And next, the Fjerdans show up. Then the Zemeni, who I thought it was really interesting to see because they're all wielding guns and, like, all sort of, like, they are all sort of like Jesper.
Yeah.
Which I was sort of surprised by because I didn't think, like, I guess where, did he grow up in Zemet?
No, because their farm is in
Kirch?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, like, considering I didn't think he grew up in, what's the name of the country? I know it's not Zemini.
Novia Zem.
Novia Zem.
Oh, so it is. Yeah, he grew up in a Jurda farm in western Novia Zem.
Oh, okay.
With his Kalish father.
Oh, okay. So.
And his mother was Zemini.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, anyway, I just loved how they were all very similar to Jesper.
Mm-hmm. And I guess his mother, too, because he learned it from her.
Well, yeah. So they all had their guns, but they were made to leave them at the door because there's not allowed to be any weapons inside. And turns out Jesper is with this group of people. So, like, he managed to sneak himself into the Zemini delegation, which is... Because earlier we didn't hear what Jesper's task was. Like, we knew where Wylan and Colm were going, we knew where Inej was going, we knew where Nina was going, but we didn't know where Jesper was going.
Mm-hmm.
This is where he is. So he sort of had, like, a hat pulled down over his face so, like, people couldn't recognize him, but he, like, totally blended in with everyone else. The Ravkins came next, and apparently the Ravkins and the Fjerdans almost got into it, and the Merchant Council sort of had to remind them that, like, Kirch was a neutral territory, and if you fight, you can't bid, which causes them to go to their seats. The Kalish delegation shows up, and then the Shu come last. The Shu are actually really angry because they didn't get they demanded to be, like, in the front. And the Merchant Council had to be like, man, you should have showed up on time then. Like, they're very entitled. Mm-hmm. So everyone goes to their seats and waits for the auction. Kuwait comes in on time. Kaz and Matthias are his guards, along with a Stadwatch escort. And everyone starts yelling at them. Like, the Shu are yelling at Kuwait, the Driskella are yelling at Matthias, the Dime Lions are yelling at Kaz, the auctioneer, who's, like, a respected merchant amongst the city, had to, like, bang his gavel to get order. It's like, order in this courtroom! Not actually, but...
Kind of.
But kind of, yeah. And I just love that he's not a person of huge power, but in that room, he does have a bunch of power at that moment.
Yeah.
So they have a medical examiner examine Kuwait just to make sure he's healthy, and when the medical examiner gives the okay, the auction starts. So they start bidding at 1 million. They start the bidding at 1 million Kruga. And, like, everyone jumps into it. Like, apparently, like, they can't even tell. Like, arms are going up so high that, like, they can't even tell who's bidding what and when. It's just wild. But Sturmhond, aka the King of Ravka, waits until the bidding is like at 30 million or something like that. And then he bets 50 million Kruger. Then the Shu raise it to 60 million Kruger. And after that, the bidding slows down a lot. But, like, so they go up. It starts to go up in smaller increments, like 500,000, 1 million, 500,000, right?
Yeah.
Until the Shu eventually bumps it up to get again to 110 million.
Where are they getting this money?
Yeah. And then the Ravkins go up to 120 million.
Where are they getting this money?
They definitely don't have the money.
No.
So after he makes that bid, the doors burst open and there's drama everywhere.
Drama.
So
sorry.
15 people in blue cloaks file in. It's the Council of Tides.
Wild.
Right? They're finally making an appearance.
And we talked about them so much we knew they'd have to show up, like...
Yeah. 100%. Like, they've been mentioned several times. We knew that it was coming. So apparently they declare the auction to be a sham, and they say that it's been tampered with.
Ooh.
Yes. So we are getting all of this from Inej's point of view as she's watching it all unfold. And at that point, of course, because we can't know the outcome just yet, Inej hears a whoosh sound and sees a ninja star fly past her arm. So Dunyasha, the white something, has found her.
Blade?
And now it's... maybe.
Not sure.
And now it's up to Inej to fight her off, even though Inej has already said that she knows Dunyasha is better than her.
Yeah.
So, Inej is gonna fight her off.
Woo!
Move to now Matthias' POV. So, we're getting right back into the Council of Tides thing, so we didn't actually have to wait that long. But he was, like, sizing up the room, because, again, he's up essentially on the altar with Kuei and Kaz. And he notices that Van Eck looks very pleased with himself. And so does Pekka Rollins. Like, they both are like, ha ha ha. Right?
Yeah.
The Council of Tides were being hilarious. They were arguing with the Shu delegation. And whenever someone said something that the Council of Tides didn't like, they brought like a wave of water into the church and just soaked everyone. And I'm like, yes, I love it.
Yeah,
so much. Like, I just want everything to be solved that way. So,
would be good.
They reveal Kaz's plan. So, they didn't say that it was Kaz's plan, but they were like, haha, we know what the tampering is. The money, apparently money was funneled from the merchants and given to one of the bidders. So, seemingly, this is poor Wylan giving up all the information, and now Kaz and the crew are going to be outed, right?
Yeah.
However, Van Eck then tells Kaz that Wylan gave them up while being tortured and loudly states that, of course, Brecker is working with the Ravkins, and obviously Ravka doesn't have 120 million Kruger to bid. And the Council of Tides is like, what are you talking about? Like, the Ravkins have nothing to do with it. It's the Shu. And apparently the false fund that was created under two names, somebody by the name of Rietveld and Van Eck. And Van Eck is like, what? I didn't do this. And he is, like, insistent that Rietveld must be working with Kaz, and it isn't his fault. And then he starts listing off, like, all the reasons why Kaz would try and, like, get back at him and frame him. And, like, talks about how Kaz kidnapped Alice and Wylan, because that's been his claim this whole time. That's why everybody's on high alert.
Yeah.
Because Kaz kidnapped Wylan, and apparently Kaz is hiding Wylan somewhere. And Kaz is like, dude, what are you talking about? I got your wife from the bridge, like you asked. And I guess his wife, Alice, is, like, up in the balcony area. And he's like, come on, honey, you can tell everybody it was this guy, right, that kidnapped you. And she was like, I don't know, dude.
Oh, God, I love her. She's not very bright.
Well, no, but she essentially told him, like, I was either blindfolded or they had masks on. So she had no idea who they were.
No, exactly.
And then, but then Van Eck is like, oh, but Cass sent me a letter about where to meet. And they were like, okay, well, does the letter have his name on it? And he was like, no. And they were like, so your search is, like, your proof is nothing, really. You have no proof that it was Kaz that did anything. And they were like, is the search for your son? So the auctioneer is sort of taking charge of this whole thing because he is in charge of the auction. So he was like, is the search for your son just as flimsy? Like, the reasons that you think he's been kidnapped, like, are they equally bad? Because, like, we've shut down the entire city to look for your son.
Yeah.
And then Wylan walks in. All bloody and beaten, but he's there. So my immediate thought is, he got away! And Van Eck sort of whispers, like, he's annoyed that Pekka's men didn't do their jobs. And he, like, sort of whispers, like, oh, can nobody do their job in this city? And then Kaz asks if he's sure they were Dime Lions.
So good.
So, turns out, Kaz staged a kidnapping and had two dregs pretend to kidnap Wylan and tell Van Eck, and then, like, act as though they were Dime Lions. Because, like, Van Eck doesn't know who any of the Dime Lions are. Like, so as long as they claim to be Dime Lions, he's just going to take it on faith. They did actually, like, beat him up to make it look believable.
Yeah.
And Wylan says that, Wylan lies and says Pekka Rollins took him captive weeks ago. And Van Eck was like, no, son, tell the truth about the Ravkins. Because according to Wylan, so Wylan told the captors who told Van Eck about this whole plan with the Ravkins. Like, he did tell the truth. And then they told Van Eck, yeah. I know, iffy. Like,
what we thought was the truth. What they told us was happening, and then they changed it.
Yes. So what they told us was the truth. That's what Wylan told the dreg/Dime Lions, who in turn told Van Eck. So, like, Van Eck did know the plan, that they had funneled money to Ravka. Mm-hmm. But, obviously now, everybody is changing the story. So, again, he says, like, tell the truth about the Ravkins, and Wylan says, he'll say what, he sort of is resigned and says, I'll say whatever you want me to say, Father, just don't let them hurt me anymore.
Oh, it's so sad, but it's a lie, and I love it, but it sounds so sad.
But this causes, like, the council and everybody to be, like, like, disgusted and gasping, and they're looking at Van Eck, and they're all like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And then Van Eck keeps trying to turn it around and be like, But Kaz was at my house. Everybody, you saw him at my house. And he was like, and Kaz is like, yeah, of course I was there at your house. Like, you arranged for us to meet, for me to broker a deal for Kuwei's indenture. And instead, you had Pekka Rollins ambush us all. And, of course, Wylan was there at the house, but he looked like Kuwei at the time, which lends credence to that story. And so, yes! So the council all saw Kuwei there, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds true. Like, that sounds right. So then they all start to get suspicious, considering Van Eck gave the description for Kuwei for all the wanted posters. And they were like, how did you know what he looked like before the auction?
Yeah.
Because he's not supposed to know who he is, sure, but he's not supposed to have seen him before.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how did he know what he looked like? Remember, I mentioned him at the beginning. Carl Dryden also mentions that Van Eck was, like, super eager for them to join the consortium. And initially, when they had the meeting with Colm / Rietveld, Carl Dryden sort of wanted to look into, like, they had noticed that somebody had been buying up all the Yerda farms.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned that he wanted the council to look into it. Of course, it was Van Eck who was doing it, so he sort of brushed it off and said, no, it's fine. It's probably just, like, it's not a big deal, right?
Sure, it's nothing.
Yeah. So, then Dryden, like, says, like, because I guess, oh god, backtrack. So
there's so much.
I know. So, Carl Dryden is, like, points out to everybody present, oh yeah, like, Van Eck was super eager for us to join that consortium. But then Van Eck was like, oh, you were eager too! Mm-mm. And then Carl Dryden had to be like, yeah, but I wanted to investigate that secret Yerda buyer, and you're the one who dismissed it. And then Carl Dryden is like, oh my god, you're the secret Yerda buyer! That's why you didn't want us looking into it! And everyone's like, oh my god! And it connects for everybody that Van Eck was trying to, like, he's trying to control the market.
Yeah.
So the auctioneer decides that because there's, like, this shady business going on, he needs to cancel the auction, at least until they figure out whether a councilman has knowingly funded one of the bidders.
Yeah.
So, like, none of them have knowingly funded a bidder, but they think Van Eck knew.
Yeah.
So, and then he sort of says to Van Eck, like, at best, you wasted city council, like, city resources looking for your son, who's right here. And at worst, you've swindled all the councilmen, aka your friends, and violated the integrity of this auction. And everybody starts to freak out. Like, everybody is all in an uproar.
This is a big deal.
It is a big deal, because, again, in Kirch, the deal is the deal. Like, they're very, like, their business dealings are held, like sacred, right? Yeah. And so everybody is freaking out, all the delegations are in an uproar, and they're all, like, fighting with each other until they hear the sound of a siren. And it's the plague siren. What? And everybody freaks out to, like, get out of the crowded church and get home.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. So, we're going to hear a bit more about the plague siren. So, we're moving now to Nino's POV, because she has not been present at these proceedings. She's been at the barrel. What has she been doing, you may ask? I'll tell you. So she's been to 4 different establishments in the barrel using her new magic. So we finally learn what she took from the morgue. Apparently she took black necrotic cells from the dead guy, so she just took them. And, like, because she can now use deadness, so she brushed a dealer's hand and used the cells she had gathered to make him look sick. And, like, made the cells, like, travel up his arm to his face and made it look, like, kind of necrotic. Mm-hmm. And then she made the cells jump to, like, a fancy lady in pearls that had touched that had out in the open touched the dealer. So she essentially made it look like there was some sort of sickness that was transmissible by touch.
Yeah. Smart.
And, she created a crazy pandemonium. People were, like, racing out of the gambling hall. And, like, she'd been going from place to place to place. And finally she heard the plague siren. So I guess she was going from place to place until she got the siren. Like, that was her goal.
Yeah.
So she was thinking about why they were doing this. And she says it's because Kaz knew that the siren would achieve what they wanted. For everybody to return home. So apparently the last time there was a plague in Ketterdam, when you heard that siren, it meant get into your house.
Yeah.
And it also, like, had a bunch of rules associated with it for the Stadwatch. Like, if the Stadwatch also heard that sound, they knew they had to get to certain checkpoints, and they had, like, certain protocol that had to be followed. And it's the one thing that everybody is more afraid of. More afraid of than the gangs, more afraid of the delegations. Like,
yeah.
Everybody would be terrified of Plague, because Plague doesn't care if you're, like, poor or rich or from the barrel or not. Like, it went after you regardless.
It's super smart. I think he even mentions it before.
It's so smart.
He's like, I know the thing that everyone's more afraid of than anything else. And you're like, what could that be? In, like, a previous chapter. And then this happens and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. The Plague! Sorry, I just really like saying it.
It's okay.
The Plague!
I liked it.
So, anyway, so, like, Nina obviously knew that she didn't give people the plague. Like, it was just a cell. She was just, like, killing the cells. And that, like, they could get the spots removed, but nobody was going to die from what she did.
Yeah. It's definitely a hassle, though. Like, you now need to get plastic surgery. Because, yeah.
So, yeah, and, like, it just meant that, like, she just realized that she was actually just growing to appreciate her new power. Because, like, before now, she sort of thought that it wasn't natural and, like, she wasn't like other Grisha and all that. But she's starting to appreciate it now.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually said that, like, using the new power made the thoughts of Parem, like, really distant. Like, she wasn't jonesing for it the way that she had been.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Well, and it's the kind of thing that we said before of, like, Grisha, when they're not using their powers, are, like, weakened and, like, don't have an appetite, feel sick, and all that stuff. So it's not surprising because she wasn't using her power because she didn't realize it wasn't working, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, now that Nina has done her job, we move to Inej's POV. So, the last time we met Inej, she was gonna get ready and fight Dunyasha. So, she was fighting her again. She actually said she was going to think more like an acrobat. So she was using her instincts as an acrobat, not as a brawler like Kaz and Jesper. Like, they taught her how to fight, so she wasn't going to use those instincts. So she managed to draw first and second blood, which is good for her. And then Dunyasha does something really strange that doesn't really get resolved. So she says that Inej was a murderer, and it was her job to rid the world of people like her, and that she has never taken an innocent life before.
Yeah.
Dunyasha.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just an interesting thing to say, because we know that Inej has issues killing people.
Yeah.
And, like, again, I'm not 100% sure who she has killed, because I'm also getting book and show mixed together.
Yeah.
Because in the show, Tante Helene would have her actually, like, get rid of people for her. But I don't know if we have any proof of her doing that in the books.
No, I think the deaths in the books that she's caused have been through the gang. It's not, like, it's gang work. But, like, she didn't like it. And it's also, like, where is this person getting their information from?
Well, I would assume Pekka Rollins.
Exactly. So, like, I think that's the real issue with it, is, like...
Yeah.
And she's holier than thou. Like, she's very, like, I'm doing this because I need to, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, I almost feel like if Inej would have said something and been like, hold up, that's not me. Like, you know, anything I've done, it's because I'm indentured. I'm not, like, you know, I'm owned by others. Like, I don't know, I just feel like, even though I know Dunyasha is unhinged...
She's not one to be reasoned with, I don't think. But I do understand what you're saying. Like,
I just feel like if she would have said, excuse me, where did you get that information from? Because that's not legit. Yeah. I feel like she could have been reasoned with.
Maybe. I doubt it, though.
I know, I don't actually think, but I hope that she would have.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, they keep fighting, and Inej finally, like... So the whole time, Kaz has been like, you just have to find her tell. If you think she's better than you, just find her tell, and then you can beat her. And she finally finds it and manages to stab her. She said in the, like, I can't remember if she said in the lower, like, right below her sternum, or above her sternum. Somewhere around the sternum. The sternum was mentioned.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine you being able to stab someone in the sternum. Isn't there, like, a breastbone right there?
Yeah.
Like,
also, above the sternum is the throat. So I doubt it's...
But anyway, sternum was mentioned. And, like, I don't know if that's the chest area or the stomach area. She doesn't die, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
It doesn't kill her. And so she keeps fighting until Dunyasha actually puts her knife away, and it makes it seem like she's giving up. But instead, she blows red dust in Inej's eyes and makes her blind. Not permanently, just temporarily.
Yeah.
And so, like, Inej is, like, backing away from her since she can't see, and all she sees is, like, a blurry figure. And she realizes that Dunyasha may be better trained, but Inej knows this city, and that is her, like, that's something going for her. So she finds, like, a piece of scroll work on the roof that she knows for a fact is wobbly. Like, she mentioned before that, like, this cathedral is, like, one of her favorite places to be in the whole city. So I think she's there a whole lot. So, yeah, she knows that there's, like, this wobbly piece of scroll work. So she manages to lure Dunyasha to step on it, and she loses her footing, causing her to fall to her death. So, yay!
Like, if she could say that she was innocent before, like, this death isn't really... Like, she's not even indentured anymore, so, like...
No.
Yeah. This one's personal.
No, but I guess this is it's an either you or me scenario.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Obviously, it, like... To play so unfairly, like, what a
B word.
Yeah, I was thinking a word that we use here that doesn't translate anywhere else. What a skeety move. It doesn't really translate.
No, that's true. Anyway, so Inej doesn't even really have time to, like, process this thing because she is on a schedule, so she has to, like, grab Jesper's rifle and she has to boot it.
Schedule. It's true. It's just funny.
And she's like, Kuwei has to die. I know. Do you know what, though? And this is gonna sound really cold. I don't, like, Kuwei has to die. I'm okay with it.
Well, yeah. I get that. I just think, like, was it last week? Probably the week before. They were finally getting somewhere where they were, like, discussing how... like Jurda could be used as an antidote. So I do think like he would be helpful in that situation because Jesper was talking about the stalks of the plant and how his mother used it to counteract the Jurda wakefulness-ish stuff. So like, but and somebody else could tell the Ravkins that and they can go on and but he is also only a kid, I guess.
But, like, we did say that somebody... Did we say that somebody dies at the end of this book?
Yeah, you said that.
Well, he's probably the best candidate.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Right? You don't want to split up any of the other couples.
Yeah.
Anyway, so. Skip now to Jesper's POV. So we're backtracking all the way now to the Council of Tide showing up. And so Jesper, like, feigns a stomach ache to get the Stadwatch to let him leave. And they're like, well, you can't go out the front door, because once the auction starts, the doors are supposed to remain sealed until there's a deal made. So we can't let you out. Even though the Council of Tides, they opened the doors and all came in.
Yeah.
But
they're
apparently...
the Council of Tides, though.
Yeah. So, but he's like, seriously, like, I'm gonna, like, essentially insinuate that he's gonna shit all over the place. So, like...
That's true. It's just funny.
So, like, I gotta go. So they're like, okay, we'll take you out through, like, a chapel, like a side chapel.
Mm-hmm.
So they're leading him out, and, like, the guard is taking him, and he ends up knocking the guard out and tying him up. And just as he's about to head up the stairs, he gets grabbed from behind!
Oh no!
Even worse, it's a Kurgud soldier.
Eee.
One of the ones with metal under his skin. And he starts throwing Jesper around and, like, pins him to a wall. And I don't really understand this. Like, the whole goal is to collect Grisha and take them. Like, why is he bothering to, like, throw him around the room?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. And I think Jesper even says, like, this guy isn't fucking around. He's actually trying to kill him. And you're like, but that doesn't make sense either. Why is he doing this?
Yeah. So, Jesper, like, feels in his pocket, and he actually manages to have a vial of that chemical weevil. And he yells out, "Oh, Parem!" Because he knows the shoe soldier, the Kurgud guy, is actually, he understands that word. Mm-hmm. And then he freaks out. He's like, oh my god, you've got Parem. Like, he's gonna take it, and he's gonna, like, kick my ass.
Yeah.
So Jesper, like, pretends to take some, but then he breaks the vial and shoves it down the guy's throat. Like, broken glass shards and all.
Ugh, I know. Brutal.
And, like, he starts to think that, like, it didn't work, but then the guy starts to convulse and drops to the floor, and, like, pink foam is spilling out of his mouth.
Crazy.
So he's like, brushes his hands, like, okay, that's done. And then he runs to the meeting place with Inej, and she gives him his rifle. He has to aim around a corner in order to shoot Kuwei. Because that's the plan. He's going to shoot Kuwei.
Yeah. But it's because they, like, ran out of time.
Yeah. And he realizes, like, oh, yeah, obviously I use my power to shoot. Like, he's finally understanding, like, oh, yeah, like, it's my fabricator power that allows me to aim this well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. And then he takes the shot, and he shoots Kuwei!
What?
I know.
How sad.
It is sad. Poor Kuwei.
Yeah.
Again, though, necessary sacrifice, I think.
Yeah. So we go to Kaz's point of view right now, and he is right next to Kuwei when he's shot. And it's like, Jesper's super lucky that he could control it that well, and that nobody moved in front of it while it was traveling so far. Right? It seems crazy. Anyway, Kaz is the first one to get to his side, so he uses a syringe on him, and then he yells for a medic, but the medic is, like, paralyzed, because, like, the sirens are going off. They've just started going off, basically, and it's chaotic. So Matthias has to go over and, like, get the medic and bring him over. They look over, and Van Eck is surrounded by the Merchant Council and the Stadwatch, so they're like, cool, he's not going to get away. Let's worry about other shit now. Sturmhond, Zoya, and Jenya are, like, rushing out of the exit and getting away, while the, like, Ravkan soldiers and the Fjorden soldiers are just, like, get into a fight. I guess to maybe distract them. But it's literally just chaos. Yeah. Kaz sees Inej and Jesper coming towards him, and he notices the blood on her and her eyes, but he's like, okay, good, she's fine. Which I just love them. Jesper sees Wylan as he's coming over, and he's like shocked by the state of him because like they beat the shit out of him, and the plan the whole time was for him to like get beat around a bit and then give away what they were doing. Give away in quotation marks. Obviously he didn't. He said that it was the Ravkins that were getting funded, so that Van Eyck thought that. Anyway, but it was part of the plan, but he's just shocked that he went so far with it. So that's just interesting. There was no need, Wylan, no need. But he says he wanted it to be believable. Jesper is basically told to stay with Wylan in case he's like questioned or anything, so they're staying in the church. Matthias drags the medic after Quay's body, and I guess two Stodwatch are like taking his body out because they need to get it to a hospital, basically. They're like hoping they can somehow save him. Yeah. Inej stares down at Van Eyck, and he actually looks worried because the last thing she said to him was that like she would see him only once more, and basically she's gonna kill him. So I love that.
I do too.
Kaz and Inej go out the back of the church, but before they can leave, they're met by Pekka Rollins. And I love so many scenes in the end of this book, but I love this scene. Pekka basically says he should have killed Kaz when he came to him for money. And Inej goes to take her knives out to like fight, but Pekka's like, it's between the two of us. You stay out of this, girl. Asshole. But anyway, Kaz is like, sure, we can talk. And Pekka's like, I don't want to talk. Like, I'm taking you out once and for all, basically. But Kaz offers a trade. And Pekka's like, you have nothing that I want. Why would I trade with you? And he says, it's about the Kalish Prince. And Pekka lists off like, oh yeah, it's 3 stories high. It's the best gambling hall that there's going to be. But Kaz says, no, the little Kalish Prince. And then he says he's fond of sweets, red hair like his father's, and he doesn't take good care of his toys. And he pulls out like a stuffed lion that is covered in soil. And Pekka is just like, what the fuck? And he is in shock. Kaz then says, like, the last time they talked, Pekka was talking about legacy, and he put it together like he must be trying to leave a legacy for someone, or else why would he do it? And that's when he kind of realized he had to have a child. Then the Kalish Prince, so clearly it's likely a boy. So
with red hair.
Yeah. Pekka says he'll kill everyone Kaz loves, but Kaz says he'll be too late. And he also says the trick is not to love anything. So Pekka asks like what he wants, because Kaz did offer this as a trade. And Kaz says he wants him to remember. And he tells him like that him and his brother had met him when they were younger, and his brother basically died because of him. And like he even tells him what his fake name was and where his like setup was like had taken place. And Pekka's just like, he can't remember. He's done so many cons, he just can't remember Kaz or his brother. And he's like kind of trying to say that like if it wasn't him, it would have been somebody else. Yeah. Which is, you know, probably true.
But also still a dick thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. Kaz then says that he buried his son alive 6 feet under the ground, and he was begging for his father the whole time. Which is awful. Mm-hmm. And Inej is shocked, and Kaz knows, like, she isn't going to forgive him for this one. Like, this is too far. So Pekka slams him against a wall and is, like, beating his head against the wall, but, like, Kaz doesn't give a fuck because he's Kaz. Mm-hmm. And he says, say my brother's name and I'll tell you where he is, like, where your son is. Like, if he can remember his brother's name, and, like, he is trying to remember, and he keeps saying, like, Kaz and blank, and he's like, maybe he can get it, but, like, Kaz didn't go by Kaz then. I don't think. I don't remember. Now I'm second-guessing myself.
I thought he did.
I thought he didn't. He changed his last name, obviously. Mm-hmm. His last name wasn't Brecker, but I can't remember. No. Maybe he did go by Kaz. Anyway, not the point. So Pekka's basically like, he really can't remember the name, but he says he can make him rich and he can give him anything. And Kaz just says, bring my brother back. Mm-hmm. And Kaz is kind of realizing again that, like, he's kind of thinking about it again, I guess, because in your part, he was like, he realized his brother kind of let him down. But he's like, his brother was a mark, and he would have taken advantage of him too if he had, like, been around then. And he thinks maybe one day he'll forgive his brother for not being as perfect as he remembers, and maybe he'll also be able to forgive himself for being so gullible. Which is like, he realizes that it's not fair to blame his brother for this, and it's not fair to be, like, mad at himself either, but you can't really change your feelings. So
no.
So well, it is...
all you can do is work through them. And
yeah. And, like, I guess that's what he's going to try to do, which is good. Pekka really can't remember his name, so he goes to his knees in front of Kaz and starts to beg him. And obviously the dime lions that are there, like, start shaking their heads in disgust because, like, weakness is the worst thing you can show in Ketterdam. Like, you can't come back from this, basically. So Kaz tells him that his son is buried in a field with, like, a black flag sticking out of the spot. And he tells him to hurry. So Pekka basically starts, like, yelling at his men, and they're, like, distanced from him. Like, they're still doing what he says, but you can tell that they're, like, disgusted by what they just saw. And you can also, like, Kaz can also tell that, like, Pekka realizes that this is happening, but he obviously loves his son so much. And, like, as he's leaving, of course he threatens Kaz or whatever, but, like, he's just jetting out there as fast as he can to get to his son because he is buried alive.
Yes.
Which is awful. And Nej then asks him if, like, Pekka's gone, and Inej asks Kaz if Pekka's gonna get there in time, and Kaz is just like, in time for what? And she's like, oh, you didn't actually do it, did you? And he says he's never seen the kid before. He just guessed it all, which is amazing. But now, like, Pekka's going to be out of town, so he can't corroborate what Van Eck says when, like, they start questioning Van Eck. And also, he, like, fled with a medic during a plague outbreak, so it's going to seem like he has the plague or something, or, like, someone in his family does. And, like, it's not a good move to steal a medic during a plague. You can't really steal people, but you know what I mean. So Kaz also mentions that, like, they hit 4 places with the plague, Nina did. It was his 3, like, businesses. So I think it was 2 bars and a brothel. And they also hit the menagerie. And he says that he did that for Inej. And, like, he sees a smile on her face. And he thinks in his head he might die to earn that smile again. Because it's, like, such a beautiful smile. And I love it. Inej tells him he's a good man, but he replies he can only kill Pekka's son once, but now Pekka's gonna remember and always be afraid that he's gonna kill his son. So, like, it's better than actually killing his son, because, like, if you kill his son, he has nothing left to lose, and then he'll fuck Kaz up. It's kind of what happened to Kaz. Anyway, good scene. So we go over
it is. It was a really good scene and very smart of Kaz to do it. And, like, I love that, like, the whole duology has been about, not what it's been about, but it's been Kaz being like, I need to get, like, tear Pekka Rollins down. And we all sort of thought that would end with him killing him, but I sort of like that he's not.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, same. So we go over to Matthias's point of view now, and he's still with the medic and Kuwei's body. But the medic, like, checks his pulse and says it's no use. But Matthias is just thinking he hopes he doesn't look at Kuwei's chest, because they apparently used a rubber bullet and they got blood and marrow from a butcher shop and put it in a bladder so that it would explode on his chest when he was shot. And then obviously Kaz injected him with something. So the emergency boat that I guess is generally there in case something happened isn't there because everybody's fleeing because of the plague. But a boat shows up with a very pregnant lady in the back, and they are on their way to the hospital. So they offer to take Kuwei as well. The Stod Watch don't want to be near the hospital, so they're like, we can't leave here. Medic will just take him. And Matthias is like, I can't leave him. It's my, like, duty to stay with him until the end, basically. So Matthias has to go. So the three, well, the body and the two of them get on this boat. And the medic is like the
an
pregnant
asshole.
Lady. He's 100%, but the pregnant lady is like, I'm about to have birth. I'm about to have birth. I'm about to give birth, so, like, it'd be great to have you on board just in case. And he's like, why aren't you why aren't you having your baby at home? Like, I don't deal with women's problems. And he's like very so condescending and is such an asshole.
Yeah, I hate his guts.
But he's also, like, very clearly afraid of women. Like, he does not want to be near her.
No. But he's also perfect for this job.
Yes. And I wonder, like, did they, like, figure out who it was going to be? And were they like, we'll be a pregnant lady. That's how we'll do it. Because we realize then, like, Nina is the pregnant lady and Roddy is the one steering the boat. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're still in Matthias's point of view, but he can't help looking at Nina a whole bunch, and he just thinks of how beautiful and healthy she looks since she's been using her power. So she used it to spread the plague, quotation marks. And she looks healthy, which he's obviously super pumped about.
Well, and doesn't he say something, too, about, like, looking at her when she looks all pregnant and being like, ooh.
Yeah. Don't like that. But that's
yeah.
Unnecessary. I hate a pregnancy trope. I'm sorry, everybody that likes it. Anyway, so they end up getting stopped near a bottle boat, and, like, they can't get past, and Roddy is having an argument with the person on the bottle boat, and, like, Nina is, like, wailing to, like, kind of try to distract the doctor, and the doctor, like, asks Matthias to hand over his bag, and he's like, shit. Like, she has a fake pregnant belly on. He can't actually look at her, so he hides the stethoscope. But then the doctor only wanted, like, a sedative or something, I think it was, and he just wants it for himself, because Matthias is like, that doesn't sound like it's healthy for a pregnant lady, and he's like, no, it's for me. But while all this is happening, basically, they were just distracting the doctor so that Specht, who is actually the one captaining the bottle boat, and Roddy can swap Kuwei's body for a corpse that they just got from somewhere. I guess the corpses get picked up at night, so, like, there's places where they leave them until the nighttime. So they just get a random corpse, switch it out.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So then they like sail to a smaller clinic that is likely overwhelmed by the plague. That's what they're hoping for. And a nurse is there waiting for the boat because they assume that, like, people are coming with emergency cases. And she's just like, why did you bring a corpse here? And tells them to just bring it out back to the wagon, where I guess the body men will collect it tonight. So the medic just kind of, like, runs off. But, like, now the hospital and the medic are both gonna say that Kuwei is dead. So that's all they wanted. They wanted that to happen. So they just bring this corpse to the wagon, and then Nina and Roddy are already gone. So Matthias starts going towards the meeting point, but someone yells out to him, and he turns around, and it's a young Drusilla, and he's holding a pistol out, and he says he charges him with treason, and then he says, like, Matthias, like, killed his friends at the ice court, and Matthias is, like, trying to talk him down. He's like, I didn't kill any of them. But the Drusilla is like, well, your friends did, and then he's like, you humiliated Commander Broom, and Matthias is just, like, hands up, slowly walking towards him, and he's like, I'll come with you, like, I'm sorry, it's fine, I'll come with you type thing. But he kind of gets spooked, I think, because Matthias is walking towards him. He's only about 14, Matthias says. And he ends up shooting Matthias. And we jump over to Nina's point of view, because we can't finish a story in a chapter.
Nope.
So basically everybody except for Matthias is at the meeting point. Literally everybody, like, including Sturmon, Zoya, and Genya. And Genya is injecting Kuwei, and, like, she uses 1 dose of antidote, but that's not enough, and then she tries another dose, and it's not working, and it's, like, supposed to counteract the poison that Kaz gave him right after he was shot. It doesn't work, but Nina is like, the only hope for an antidote is if somebody, like, has
Yurda.
Yeah, so, like, Kuwei is the only hope, for an antidote, if somebody else manages to make the Jurda Parem. So she really doesn't want him to die, but then she's also thinking, like, I think Zoya said earlier that it's probably best if he does die anyway, so it's like, it's not great. We're afraid he's gonna die. A little afraid. He's not someone that we super care about. Sorry, yeah. Kuwei. Zoya goes to his body and starts to summon lightning, and Sturmhond tells them, like, she's done this twice before, and it worked splendidly once. So, it's a 50-50 chance here, but I think Genya puts some fabric between Kuwei's teeth, and Nina's just, like, looking at Sturmhond, and she, like, recognizes something about him, but she doesn't realize it. Like, she doesn't, like, it doesn't click together with her. Like, obviously she's dealt with King Nikolai. And, like, she's like, she almost puts it together in her head, but then she's like, nah, no way. And then she just, like, moves on. It's just kind of funny. Mm-hmm. But then, yeah, Zoya basically uses her hands as defibrillators? Yeah. Defibrillators.
Yeah.
Defibrillators. Okay.
There you go.
And she has to do it twice. The first time it doesn't work. The second time he wakes up and he is terrified. But they're like, you're safe now. It's fine. Like, everyone thinks you're dead. The auction is over. You're good to go. Yeah. But he's super weak, obviously. He was just poisoned for, like, half an hour or some shit. Who knows how long. Before the Ravkins leave, basically, Sturmhond tells Nina she and her Fjordan are welcome back home, and Ravka and the Crown are grateful to her. And Zoya tells her that they would be lucky to have her back, which shocks Nina, because she's, like, not, like, Zoya doesn't give out praise at all.
No, and all she's done has been, like, you made mistakes.
Yeah. And also, like, I think while they're saying that she's welcome back, she's like, my powers aren't what they used to be. Like, I'm not the same. And that's when Zoya says that. And it's just, like, it's really nice of her, really, to say it. Yeah. Kaz needs to get back to the church to make sure Wyland's okay with the questioning or anything that's happening. And Nina sees Matthias coming towards them, so she runs towards him and throws herself into his arms. And he's so happy to see that she's all right, and he kisses her, but she realizes he's acting a little weird, and she's like, did you get drunk on your way over here? Like, what's going on? And then he, like, slumps against her, and she asks him, like, what's wrong? And he says, it's nothing. Matthias, it's nothing. Really? He just had to see her again, basically. Like, one more time, and you're like, what the fuck? And his coat opens, and she sees the blood, and she yells for help, but, like, the streets are completely empty. Inej comes over, obviously, and Nina asks for Parem, but, like, none of them have it. Kaz just left. And Matthias tells her to stop, and that it isn't worth the risk, which is just so sad. And then he says he needs her to save the other Druskella. And then I'm just going to read a quote from the book because it just, like, broke my heart, so I need to break everyone else's.
Okay.
And she says to him, we'll go together, Matthias. We'll be spies. Genya will tailor us, and we'll go to Fjorda together. I'll wear all the ugly knitted vests you want. And he says, go home to Ravka, Nina. Be free, as you were meant to be. Be a warrior, as you have always been. Just save some mercy for my people. There has to be a Jurda worth saving. Promise me. She says, I promise. He said, I have been made to protect you. Even in death, I will find a way. And he clasps her hands tightly, and he says, bury me so I can be with Jel. Bury me so I can take root and follow the water north. And she says, I promise, Matthias, I'll take you home. And he says, Nina, pressing her hand to his heart, I am already home.
Oh.
And then the light vanishes from his eyes. And then he just dies. There's, like, not many books that we've done that, like, have brought me this close to tears. Oh my God.
You are, like, there right now.
I know. It is so sad. But it's so, oh my God. Ugh. Anyway.
It's very upsetting.
It is very
guys,
upsetting.
This entire book, I have known that Matthias is going to die at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the main reason why I didn't even want to read this book, because I knew going in that Matthias is going to die. And I didn't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to imagine them both alive, living their lives together.
And happy. I know, I'm sorry.
And it just didn't happen.
It did not happen.
I hate you a little.
That's okay, you can. Okay. It's worth it for this book, though. I think it is, anyway.
Yeah.
So obviously Nina is devastated, and all she can think of is, like, if her power didn't change, she probably would have been able to help him, because she had Heartrender powers. She could have slowed down his heart, slowed the blood, probably. Like, she could have helped him. And obviously, if she had Parem, she could have taken it and saved him as well. So she is real upset. So she reaches out with her power then and tells him to come back to her. And his body gets animated and his eyes are black, which is not normal. His eyes are normally like a light blue like ice. But his voice is Matthias's voice. And she's like, she wants him to be all right so bad, but she knows it's wrong. Like, this is wrong. And Inej tells her to let him go, but she says she can't. And Inej tells her that she will meet him again in the next life, but only if she suffers this now. And that's when Nina finally lets him go and asks Jel to watch over him. It's so sad. This next chapter, I feel like, was unnecessary. We get Matthias's point of view, and it's basically just his death. And I know it's, like, the way the book is written. Like, she goes back with everybody, and, like, things are happening concurrently, even though a chapter is after. But, as Matthias is basically dying, he knows Nina is safe, and he is home, and he's being welcomed by the wolves. And he's just, like, at peace, basically. Which is good, but also so sad.
I hate it.
I know. So sad. So, now we go over to Wyland's point of view. And he, Jesper, and Alice are sitting in a pew in the church. And the shoe have left, but they threatened military action over one of their citizens' death, because obviously Kuei is technically Shu, even if they were trying to get him to use him. The Fjordans wanted Matthias found and to, like, take him back to probably kill him, which is sad because
he's already dead.
But Wylan doesn't know that yet, and also I think we're technically in the past again.
Oh, so he's not dead yet.
He's not dead yet. We're gonna have to go through that again. Not really. We don't actually have to go through it again. Well, kind of later we do, because anyway, onward. Because of the plague, the Fjordans were told that they had to go back to their embassy because, like, nothing is going to be happening right now. There's a fucking plague outbreak. It's not the time.
Yeah. It sounds familiar.
Right? It's funny. I literally recently looked up when this book came out because it was like a plague. Yeah. Having to stay home. When did this come out? Yeah, but it was
pre-COVID?
Oh, much pre. Yeah.
So it tells the future.
It does tell the future.
Yikes.
I did read it during COVID because the show was coming out, so I started reading the trilogy first, and then I read this. Mm-hmm. And during COVID, I had time to just read everything, like you do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're in this church, and Wylan kind of, like, realizes in this moment that they likely stopped a war. Like, if Ravka had won the auction, no one would ever have let them leave with Kuei and not, like, retaliated in some way.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh shit, we actually, like, probably stopped a war and did something good. And it's kind of crazy to him because he's like, obviously he thinks of himself as somebody who, like, isn't even that smart. He can't read all this stuff. And, like, he's part of stopping a war. Like, that is bigger than one person can comprehend. So it actually makes him start laughing because he's like, what the fuck is life? Which is relevant. So then a man runs in with papers that Wylan kind of assumes show that the money from the council went directly to the Shu, like the Council of Tides said, and Van Eck tells them that it's Brecker, obviously, because that's his go-to, and it's also true. Mm-hmm. But nobody else knows that. And he says to ask Pekka Rollins and to find the farmer. And, like, the merchant council is like, have some self-control, like, chill the fuck out. But,
well, just think too, like, this guy is ranting and raving towards a bunch of teenagers.
I know, which makes it even better.
It just really makes him even more unstable looking. Like, dude, relax. These are 16-year-old children.
And one of them is your child who is, like, actively trying to please you.
Yeah.
Like, it's painful.
Yeah.
But 70 million Kruger of the council's money is gone. And he's now being, like, basically charged with that. And, like, eventually he can post bail, but, like, it's not looking good for him. He is in it deep.
Yeah.
Alice obviously doesn't understand what's going on.
Because she's not all there.
No, she never has been, but, like,
do you know what? God. I'm going to blame it on the pregnancy for her. She's got pregnancy brain.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's a thing.
And, like, I think they say it later, and, like, we talked about it a few weeks ago, but, like, her family kind of forced her into this marriage, I think is said, like, later this chapter, and that kind of is like, oh, I get why, like, maybe she's turning a blind eye because, like, that's all she can really do. Like, she was told she had to do this. We don't know. She's only, like, 2 or 3 years older than Wylan, and he is a teenager. She's like early 20s or 19. Yeah. Like, it's fucked.
Yeah.
I would also be an idiot if I were her age. Wylan obviously realizes that his father is probably fucked and that he's going to lose everything. And he thinks it's all going to go to her and her unborn child. And he's like, that's perfect. You'll be fine. Like,
yes. Yeah.
You're okay. So he does actually say that to her. He says that she'll be okay. And Van Eck tells her not to listen to him and to go to Smeet. But then Kaz shows up, because last scene with Kaz, he says he was going back to see them.
Yeah.
And and Van Eck swears he's going to find the connection between Kaz and the fund. And it's in Wylan's point of view. So he says the only connection is Colm. So Jesper's dad is the only connection.
Yeah.
But there's also, Kaz owns the fund that has supported this firm forever. So there is that connection. I don't think anyone's going to figure any of this shit out, but...
No. I don't think they care to look, to be honest. They seem like the type to, just, you look guilty. Yep, okay.
Yes. 100%.
I feel like Kaz is smart enough to have covered his tracks so that he can't really be traced back to, Rietveld.
Yeah. Unless Pekka Rollins actually finally remembers his brother's name.
Yeah.
Which would be like a blessing and a curse, I guess.
Yes.
That'd be interesting if that ever happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does in the future book, but... Anyway, so Kaz says Van Eck's estate is now looking after his money.
Which I don't understand when people say that. When dead, especially, dead rich people. John Lennon's estate says, or, Elvis Presley's estate does this. And I'm like,
it's just...
What does their estate mean? That sounds really dumb of me.
No. And I only know of, not rich people who've died and what that means in that case. But it's if someone were to die and they had, an actual will and their things were going to, you have one person who is, the executor of the estate.
Yes.
Is what the name of it is.
Yeah.
So that's what the estate is.
So, but who it says, his estate is going to be in charge of everything and is going to look after everything. Who is his estate?
So you pick it, hopefully, before you die.
But okay, I understand. So, it's written in his will who is going to control everything.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, that's what you hope happens. And you also hope that someone like Kaz isn't a little shit in your life to fuck you over. You know?
I mean, if anybody's going to have a Kaz Brecker in their life, it's definitely going to be us.
Yeah, we're the shitty people.
Yeah. We're awful, terrible people. We scam children all the time. Well. I promise I don't. I really try and get students invested in learning.
Well, that's not true. Kaz is helping kids too.
Yes, he is.
Because Wylan's a kid.
Yeah.
So.
I'm the real life Kaz Brecker, is what you're saying?
What you're saying? Yeah. Don't touch me.
You just start wearing gloves all the time, and if anyone comes up to me and be like, "Excuse me, don't touch me."
Yeah. Well, I also just feel that every day,
all the time.
Excuse me, don't touch me. In general, if you are not part of my inner circle, please do not touch me.
I know, that's like when there are pregnant people, I always feel so bad for them. Because once you're pregnant, people honestly do feel like your belly is like public domain.
I know.
Like, random people will come up to you and be like, oh, and rub your belly, and you're like, excuse me. No, thank you. Like, don't touch me.
No, I hate it.
You have to ask. People always ask before you touch a pregnant lady's belly.
Well, yes, you need to ask before you touch a pregnant woman's anything.
Well, you need to ask before you touch anybody's anything. Who are we kidding?
Yes.
Consent.
I hate it all so much. I hate it. I hate when people touch people without consent.
Yes.
In every way. I didn't mean to laugh at that, but like even the dumb ways. Like even like I have half of my head shaved, and like sometimes people feel like they can just touch it, and I'm like, you can't.
I mean, I would.
You're different. You're in my inner circle. I already said inner circle consent is already like given. It's just a given. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Well, because like a lot of time too, you see people with like different texture of hair. Like sometimes people with really curly hair. Sometimes people of color with like, you know, like different textures of hair. People will just come up and be like touchy and like touch their hair. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Like,
and it even happens with like tattoos, and you're like, you don't need to touch that.
It feels
like nothing.
Yeah.
Also, if it feels like something, they did something wrong, and I also don't want you to touch it, because I have a few of those tattoos that they obviously looked up that are raised. Yeah.
Oh.
You can feel them later.
Okay.
But nobody else can.
Only me.
This is like the longest tangent. So,
it's fine.
Back to Van X's estate.
I love how we went from what an estate is to teaching.
We went like so far to consent.
To we are being bad guys, to no, we're being good guys, to then consent, to touching hair, to tattoos, and now we're finally back on track.
Are we ever back on track?
I don't know.
So, okay. Kaz says his estate is now looking after his money, so he doesn't know what Wylan will do.
Do you know what I don't understand? I don't understand why Kaz is involved in this at all. Like, he's sitting there with the police, right? I'm assuming he's sitting there with the stab watch, maybe the auctioneer guy, and maybe a few members of the merchant council. Mm-hmm. So, like, I understand why Kaz is there as from a standpoint of, like, being
the
there.
Entire book.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if I were one of the merchant council people or a member of the stab watch, I'd be like, dude, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, that would actually make him look a little bit suspicious.
Yeah. I guess the only thing is, he's the only one that knows what the will actually says. But because we'll get into it.
Okay. I don't remember why he would know. Like, I know why he would know, but I don't know why he would know, according to the merchant council, why he would know.
Oh, no reason. Well, but he just makes Van X seem crazy, so it doesn't matter.
I guess, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Kaz is basically saying, like, Wylan is his keeper of his estate, so he's the one that's going to figure out what happens to the money. And Van X says, Wylan was written out of the will. So it really does seem like a little argument between someone being like, obviously your son is the next person that's going to take over your estate because your wife was dead and now your wife now is pregnant, but women can't own things. Yes. So obviously it's your son.
Oh, those poor weak-willed women.
And, like, I kind of wonder, do you think he gave it to Alice in his next, or was he like, this unborn child is my next of kin?
But so this is what I don't understand. What if the baby is a girl?
Yeah. So, like, does that mean that...
It must be it must not matter that much. But I guess...
don't know.
I feel like he wouldn't want Alice to be his... I feel like he wouldn't want Alice to inherit everything because she's not his blood. She's not his legacy.
Yeah.
He wants it to go to his legacy, I think, regardless of gender.
Yes. Yeah. So to the child.
Yeah.
But in this case, Oh my god, we're so stuck on this line, but it's fine. We'll get there. But so in this case, the child is unborn.
Yeah.
So who's deciding how much money is going? Would it be like, would Alice get to decide as the guardian?
I would assume, yeah.
Or would it go to like the lawyer to choose on Van Eck's behalf?
I would say it would go to Alice to choose under the advice of the lawyer.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have a head for business. She's just a silly woman.
She does, but she doesn't, and I love her. I love her, but she does not have a head for business. No. She is just a silly woman, but not because she's a woman. It's just because she's a silly woman.
She's just a bit ditzy.
She is, which I understand. She's probably like 19, and like, I don't want to be here. Fuck. Oh, everything is so sad. Anyway,
okay.
So
moving on,
we're getting there. So Van Eck said that Wylan was written out of the will when Alice conceived. So I guess that does mean that it's all going to that other child. And he says there's a copy in the safe and Smeat has another copy. But Kaz is like, oh, there's a copy in your safe? And he's like, oh shit. He broke into the safe and like melted it. And then Kaz mentions Smeat's dogs and how well they're trained. And he's like, shit, kind of realizing that Kaz broke into both, switched out the wills. So Wylan is the inheritor. And like Wylan's also like, oh, Kaz has been planning this all along. And it really was his money when Kaz was at the safe and was like, we're just stealing your money. And Wylan was like, it's not my money.
It's like, no, it really is.
It actually was, which is just kind of funny. But it's like, this is the long game. So Kaz has been playing this since before Inej was rescued, because he switched out the will in Smeat's office before they rescued Inej. So this is like, maybe only been a few weeks, but it's like the entire book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Van Eck then calls Wylan an idiot who can't read. And the council is horrified by him saying this. But Van Eck is like, it's easily confirmed, ask him to read something. And one of the councilmen is like, you don't have to do this, son. Like, it's okay. Which I kind of appreciate. Like, I guess some of them might be okay. I'm not sure, but I did appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
But Wylan asks if they'll give him a transfer of authority, and he'll read it and sign it now. And they, like, bring one over to him, and they're like, this one was supposed to be for Kuei, but you can, like,
use
look
it,
at it, whatever. Yeah. So Jesper takes the document and, like, leafs through it and hands one page to Wylan. And Wylan thinks back to Jesper reading this document to him about his mother's, like, his mother and her file when all of her assets were transferred over to Van Eck. Mm-hmm. And he he can remember that. He kind of has, like, a photographic memory, I think. Like, he can remember it to music, like he said before. So he for all intents and purposes reads it out to everybody there. And Van Eck is obviously in shock.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh shit, can he actually read? Was I like, am I wrong?
Yeah. Was I an asshole? Yes, you were.
Well, yes. And then the council just feels bad for Wylan, but also feels bad for Van Eck because they think that he's, like, becoming unhinged, and they're like, what is happening? So Van Eck then rushes Wylan, saying he's going to destroy everything, but Jesper, like, steps in between them and says, like, sorry, and he whispers to Van Eck that he'll read to Wylan. And it's just, like, such a sweet moment where Jesper's like, I'll help him out. And, like, he defends him for his father. And I just love it. But,
yeah.
Van Eck is then taken away, and he's, like, basically swearing on Kaz, and he's also saying that they should check because Wylan could be wearing someone else's skin, and it really seems like there's something not okay with him. So they, like, the Merchant Council actually calls for a medic to have Van Eck checked. And Wylan then tells the council that he's a bit addled and he can't sign it right now, so they say they'll send it over to his house. And he's like, that's a good idea. And obviously Alice is still confused, but they tell her that she should go to the countryside with her music teacher to keep the baby safe. And, like, her cheeks, like, pink at the mention of Bajan. And, like, kind of makes you wonder, like, do you think the baby is actually Van Eck's? Like, I don't think it ever gets into this.
No, but I would love it if that baby came out and was Sully.
Yeah, right? Great. Like, I kind of think it might be Bajan's kid, because they feel a lot for each other based on, like, the subtle clues. So we go back to Jesper's point of view now, and they're walking back to Van Eck's house. And Jesper has the itch to gamble, but he knows he can fight it. And he kind of wonders if using his powers helped him, like, fight it. And he knows he can fight it again. And he's like, even if I have to get Wylan to, like, chain me down, I know I can, like, not go gamble when I feel like I need to, type thing. So, like, it's progress. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So they get back to Van Eck's house, and Wylan feels like an intruder in his own house, which is now technically completely his, because he's taken over the estate. But he's also completely shaken, and he asks Jesper if he meant it and if he actually will stay. And Jesper jokes that he charges a steep fee, and Wylan says he hopes the medic will be there soon to fix his ribs so he can put in a down payment. And that just sounds really sexual.
Woo!
It does, though. It sounds very sexual.
I mean,
I'm here for it.
I am too.
But I'm like,
can I just take
for a YA book?
Can I just take a beat?
Yeah.
So we've been having the discussion a whole lot on this podcast about token representation, right? And this is one instance where I feel like the representation has been done completely right.
Yeah.
Like,
you know, like, Nina talked about it. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
But Nina talked about it I think it was last week.
Yes, about how she also flirts with the girls.
And she would flirt with plants, and if they'll stand at attention. And I was like, oh my god, yes.
But, like, we didn't even catch it because it was so ingrained in the book that we were just like, yeah, sure. And we just moved on. It didn't even have to be discussed. And I feel like the same thing is happening with Wylan and Jesper's relationship. Like, they're flirting, them finally kissing, like, them, Jesper, like, saying to the dad, like, I'm gonna read to him, like, I will protect him. Like, none of that to either of us felt like, oh, they're just saying that, or the author has just put this in as like oh, I need to make the LGBTQ community happy. And, like, this is, I don't understand how Leigh Bardugo has done it. I have no clue. Yeah. But this is the type of representation that I think both of us are talking about. When we say, like, we don't know what we want, we just know that there's a right way to do it. To me, this is the right way.
Well, and it's funny because, like, there's instances in the book where they talk about Jesper with boys and girls. And, like, we also didn't even bring that up.
No.
And, like, we did mention Nina, but she's such a full-rounded character, and you're like, oh, she's so flirtatious, she will flirt with anybody that stands. You're like,
yes,
I can see it.
Yeah.
I don't, like, I don't find it odd that she would flirt with anybody and anything.
Well,
and it's kind of the same thing with Jesper, and I love it.
And I also even remember when Jesper did that thing with Wylan, like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm going to tell Matthias that you tried to kiss Nina. Yeah. And it's like, he would never believe that. Okay, I'm going to tell Nina you tried to kiss Matthias. Like, it's just, I don't know if it's just the character development, like, we just accepted about the characters. It's not coming out of left field. It's just built into the character development, so we expect it. You know what I mean?
I kind of feel like it might be the character development, because, like, I feel like in some books when I'm like
when we read Neon Gods, remember? And it was literally just, oh yeah, that time I had a relationship. Oh, surprise, it was another woman.
Yeah. And I feel like I read many books by that author, but a lot of them do have that in it, where it's like, my last relationship was a woman and I'm a woman, or my last relationship was a man and I'm a man. Yeah, it's interesting, because, like, it just, and I don't dislike it, because I never want to, and this is getting bogged down in the relationship, the conversation we always get bogged down in. Jesus. I don't dislike it. I know, like, this book does it so well that we didn't even talk about it until now, and it didn't even come up for any reason, really.
Nope.
Like, other than it seemed so normal that we commented on how normal it was, and then it got brought up all the other shit.
Yeah.
I love it.
I know. So, like, Leigh Bardugo, masterclass, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
I honestly, I think if any author wants a lesson, and again, I wouldn't even be able to pinpoint how she did it.
No.
But
like, it wasn't even surprising, like,
at the beginning.
No, wait. Sorry. I don't think that you didn't get to the point where Jesper kissed who he thought Wylan was before I pointed out that I thought that Kuwei had a crush on him. I had to point it out for the integrity of the podcast, but I also kind of spoiled it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I didn't pick that out at all.
No, but, like, the clues were there on the second read.
Yeah. Thank you.
But they weren't.
Thank you for pointing that out.
I know. But
you did that very well. Like, you were very, like, off the cuff.
Yeah. It seemed like it was very well thought out.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Oh my god, are you
absolutely wasn't. No. But you know what I mean? Like, if you hadn't have caught those clues, you still wouldn't have been surprised that Kuwei wanted to kiss him.
Right. Yeah. That's correct.
Which is also, like, interesting, because Kuwei's not as well-rounded of a character. You're just kind of, like, don't know who he is.
Yeah.
And, like, clearly he's hiding things. So you're like, there's so much more to him that we don't know. That's not surprising.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, like, out of left field, oh, I guess he's representation. It didn't feel like representation. No. It felt like Jesper entices everybody because of who he is. Like, that's really what it felt like. And I guess that's, like, it's character development. Like, Jesper is hot as fuck and everyone's gonna fall in love with him.
Yeah.
Fair.
Fair. I do too.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, so I had to bring it up that we've chatted so much about it, and I just feel like it's important for us to say, like, this is it. This was a good way to do it. Yeah. At least we think so. Yeah. And, like, if you don't agree with us, you can 100% let us know. Mm-hmm. But this just felt natural to me. Yeah. And, like, again, we never want to discourage representation in books either. So, like, authors that are doing it maybe a little bit more abruptly, we still stan you just for doing it anyway.
100%, yeah.
We need
Especially,
we need representation of all types in books, so keep representing.
Yes. And, like, it's the conversation that we have in specifically, like, the Neon Gods book, where we talked about, like, yeah, maybe one of these days, if somebody in the future is reading these books and gets to this point about somebody talking about their past couple that was same sex, it'll be completely normal and that'll seem natural.
Yeah.
And, like, that is, I guess, the goal. But right now, it feels abrupt to us because most of the relationships in the books are heterosexual. So it's like, but I don't know. We appreciate all representation, obviously.
Yeah.
But this book, we didn't question it at one point.
Not one.
So it's nice to point that out too.
Yeah. Moving on.
Back to the book. So I guess in this house is Jesper, Wylan, and Kaz. And I guess Alice is there too, but I think she went to bed.
Yeah.
So Jesper, Wylan, and Kaz are waiting outside for the sun to set and for everyone else to show up. Because I guess this is their, like, spot that they're gonna meet up. So a boat appears, and Wylan, Jesper, and Kaz are all, like, super excited because they're like, oh my god, we did it. This is good. But they go inside the boat, and they see Nina with her head on Matthias's chest, and, like, Inej is crying, and Colm looks unhappy, and, like, it's not a good time inside of this boat. And they realize, obviously, that Matthias is dead. And Kaz asks how, but Inej says they don't know. And I guess they never really find out how Matthias dies. Like, because Nina asked him, and he refused to tell her.
Yeah. Because
he obviously didn't want her to have a vendetta on the Druskella, so it's really sad.
Yeah.
Even more so than just the obvious sadness. But Jesper and Roddy take his body out and lay it on a blanket in the boathouse, and Nina sits behind him, and Inej sits behind her, and, like, they stay there in silence for a while, but then Kaz signals that, like, there's more to do. They need to strip this boat, so it's currently a bottle boat, and they need to make it look into a body man boat. I don't really know what a bottle boat is, but I'm assuming they, like, collect recyclables or something, and then the body man boat is obviously the boat that, like, goes around to pick up the dead bodies. So I think Jesper and Colm, Kaz, Roddy all start, like, stripping the boat, and they turn it into a body man looking boat. And then Wylan says they were all supposed to make it. And Jesper kind of realizes that he was thinking the same thing, that they were all supposed to make it, even if, like, it seems like such a, like, fantastical thing to think. Like, we've kind of talked about it before. Like, I don't really like books where everybody lives because I'm like, that's not realistic. But then I'm also like,
it's a book.
Nothing is realistic, so who cares? But yeah, there's so many layers. But anyway, Jesper thinks that he really started to believe that the six of them were charmed because, like, they did so much, obviously, in these last two books. Like, they broke Matthias out of jail, which is impossible. The ice court, impossible. Everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a shit show. But they then obviously say no mourners, no funerals. But then Colm tells them to say their goodbyes. And, like, one by one, they pick up a tulip and they lay it on his chest. And then they, like, go in a circle around his body, including Kuwei. And Nina says she knows it's time. and Jesper tells her Matthias loved her so much, and loving her made him better. And she asks if it made a difference, and Inej says, of course it did. And she says, he went easier because of it. Right? It is heartbreaking. And, like, it's, like, losing a partner is so fucked up.
Yeah.
So it's, like, reading about it, I appreciate when, like, the characters are realistic about it, because a lot of times if you read something, they're not. But I just appreciate Nina so much in these moments, because she's just, like, she's so fucking strong, but she's also, you can tell she is so broken, and it is another, like, I guess, callback to Leigh Bardugo being an amazing writer, and you almost have to wonder, like, what has she gone through that she can write all this stuff so well? It is wild. Wylan then asks Nina if she's going to Ravka, but she says she obviously needs to bring Matthias home and bury him, and she's not going to rest until he does. And then she asks everyone else what their plan is, and Kaz says they're going to have to figure out a way to spend all their money. And Jesper asks what money, because all of their money got poured into the shoe coffers. But Kaz is like, did it really? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? But he gave the shoe 40 million, and he kept the 30 they were owed. So that is 4 million for each of them. And then he's giving Per Haskell's share of the 4 million. So they were going to give 4 million to Per Haskell in the beginning, but obviously not anymore. So he's going to share that between Roddy and Specht, which I think is, like, super, like...
fair. Well...
yeah.
Like, I feel like they probably should have gotten more. Like, they've been just as active in this whole scenario as anybody else. Probably more so, actually. They've done, like, more jobs.
Yeah.
They're not getting as much.
No, but, like, they weren't even promised anything, and they went to the ice court. So, like, I do think, like, he did well. But then he's giving Matthias's portion to Nina as well. And he's like, I know money can't help. And she's like, I will make it help. Like, I will make sure that this money goes to something. So then Inej says that she's obviously going to find a crew and a ship. And Jesper is going to help run an empire. Mm-hmm. And Wylan is going to try not to run it into the ground. Obviously the same empire. Mm-hmm. And Kaz says he's going to build something new and watch it burn. Which you're like, why? Why would you do that? But do whatever you want. It's your money.
Yeah.
But Jesper then tells Kaz to put his share in his father's name because he's not ready to have it in his name. And Kaz says that, like, he thinks that's a good idea. Mm-hmm. And it's just...
shows growth.
It's a sweet... It's a moment that shows growth, but it also shows the love between the two characters that sometimes we're, like, unsure of.
Yeah.
Jesper then says he thought that being rich would make everything better, but Wylan says he could have told him it doesn't work that way. And you're like, that's fair. Like, obviously money helps, but it doesn't fix everything. No. Jesper then tells his dad that he's going to come home once Wylan is settled, and Colm is just like, I'd be happy if you came to visit. He also tells him that he should meet his mother's people, and specifically the girl that she saved, who is apparently now a very powerful Grisha. Mm. So, like, his father is kind of, like, turning around on all of the things that he thought before, which is nice. Jesper apologizes to his father, and he even brings up what Inej said about, like, not echoing your mistakes. Mm-hmm. And his father doesn't really understand it because he obviously isn't Sully.
Yeah.
But, like, they have a nice moment. And his dad tells him that maybe he shouldn't have tried to protect him for so long, but, like, he's always there for him. Nina and Inej say goodbye to each other, and Nina says that they'll see each other again, and then she thanks Inej for saving her, and Inej is like, we both saved each other multiple times, and she's like, I don't mean, like, saved our lives, I mean, like, the little things that have, like, made us want to live.
Yeah.
And it is, like, such a sweet moment, and I love them both so much. Kuwei then asks Jesper to come back to Ravka to learn how to be a Grisha together. But Wylan is like, I'm going to push you into this river. Please stop.
It's so good. Right? I love it so much.
Oh, God. So then Kuwei, Colm, Nina, and Matthias's body then get put into this boat. And it now looks like a Bodyman boat, and Roddy is the one steering it. And this is the only type of boat that is allowed to pass through anywhere. Mm-hmm. So they're going to bring them to the Ravkan Grisha so that they can get out. Those Grisha, the Ravkan ones, actually pretended to be the Council of Tides as part of Kaz's plan.
Oh my god.
So it wasn't actually the Council of Tides. Surprise!
Yikes. This was actually a surprise to me. I legit thought that it was the real Council of Tides. Yeah. I really did. And to hear...
I don't remember what I thought originally because so much was happening, and then when I read the next part, I was like, oh, wow, what? Yeah. So they watch the boat go, and, like, they're going to meet Sturmon's ship, and when Jesper looks around, Kaz is gone, and Inej says that he doesn't say goodbye, he just lets go. So, like, he gone. So now we go to Kaz's point of view, and it's 3 weeks later, which seems like an insane amount of time. But he's in Per Haskell's office, and it's on the ground floor of the slat, and he has bought the place next door, and he bought a spot on the lid, which is like the high end in Ketterdam. And he also bought out Per Haskell's shares in the Crows. So, like, during this time of upheaval and possible plague, he is, like, taking advantage of property investments.
Yeah, smart.
We learn that Van Eck is still in jail, and after further digging, like, the council has realized that he bought the Jurda that they, like, obviously said afterwards that they thought he bought, and he likely kidnapped his own son, he possibly sabotaged his own sugar, and he hired a team to break into a Fjordan government building. So, like, there's a lot of charges coming out on him, and he's not leaving jail soon.
Yeah.
Wylan apparently has a small fund for his legal, but he is using some of the money to fix his house, and he also is giving Jesper a small allowance to play the market.
Yeah, so it's like a way for him to gamble without there being a ton of risk.
Yes, so it's not straight gambling, but, like, it still kind of is. Like,
it scratches the itch.
Yeah. And Wylan also brought his mother home, which obviously is nice. So Kaz is getting a report, and they're telling him info, and Roeder is trying to, like, become his new spider, but Kaz says he doesn't need a new one.
I mean, he kind of does, though.
100%. Like, she's obviously not working for him right now, so...
He needs somebody to go and collect, like, information for him. Yeah. She is literally instrumental in his, like, his...
empire.
Yes.
Yeah. We also get that Pekka is holed up with his son in the countryside, and they're surrounded by armed men. Which is important to remember for the last chapter in this book. So, Kaz then gets a letter with a blue seal, and he reads it, burns it, and then he, like, does up his own letter and seals it with a black seal and puts it in his pocket, and he's going to Wylan's house, where he knows Inej has been staying. And we get a little thing here now that, like, there's apparently a rumor that Tanta Helene isn't going to make her rent because of the plague. And it's just like, karma.
Yeah, well, this is our clue up. So we're sort of getting the end of our storylines for everybody. So we need to know what's happening with all of our baddies. Tanta Helene being one.
Yeah. So karma is happening with her.
Yes.
So on Kaz's way to Wyland's house, he ends up at a canal, and 3 hooded figures come out on his right and 3 on his left, and it is the actual real Council of Tides. And they ask him where Kuei Yul Bol is. And obviously, he says he's dead because...
he died.
He did. That's what we all know. But they tell him, like, he doesn't want them as an enemy, but he says he's not a merch. They can't stop him. Like, they can't stop boats to affect him. They'd have to stop everybody because he's a thief and he's a liar and he makes money off of every boat that comes into town. Mm-hmm. So, like, them stopping boats isn't, like... yeah. They can't do anything to hurt him.
Yeah.
And then they start to drown him with salt water.
I mean, to be fair, it was not his smartest moment.
No, it was a dumb thing to say. You can't hurt me. And they're like, we can literally drown you right now.
Maybe don't.
But he tells them that he can send the plague to their towers. And he says he controlled it and he can again. And
no, he can't.
He can't. 100% he cannot.
Nina is gone.
But they don't know that,
no,
I guess. Know. But, like, if he were to send the plague to their towers, they'd be in lockdown. And he says they would have to register their identities. And Keter, like, the Stadwatch would have no, and the Merchant Council would have no, like, the people would be so... adamant that they would have to register that
they wouldn't be able to
no
stop
turning
it,
back. Yeah. But they say that they would sink Ketterdam.
Yikes!
Like, so I guess without them, Ketterdam would just sink. Is kind of what it sounds like.
Which is all well and good. What's going to happen when one of them dies?
But it also makes me wonder who they are, because I feel like they could be prominent people, and we just don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if we ever get it. I also, like I said, I haven't finished all of the books, so people could be yelling at us right now because...
yeah, because we know who they are.
Yeah.
It's Inej.
Yeah, oh my god.
What a twist that
She's
would
not
be.
a Grisha.
It's not Inej. I was just making a joke.
Yeah. So basically the Council of Tides don't want the world to know about Jurda Parem because they want Grisha to be saved.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like it's very against the Merchant Council. So it's kind of interesting. Like they're not on the same page. And they obviously tell Kaz that he's going to regret this, and they leave, and he knows that, like, likely one of these days they're going to want something in the future, and he's going to feel like he has to give it to them. Yeah. So we get to Inej's point of view, and she just ate supper with Wyland and Jesper, and she's kind of thinking that, like, Wyland's mother seems to be coming back to herself in fits and starts, but it's going to be a long journey. Which is kind of like what we were talking about earlier. And, like, makes you wonder what they did to her. Yeah. Like, do we think it was poison and it's just, like, slowly leaking out of her system? Or, like, did they actually torture her in some way?
I don't know. I think some form of electric shock must have been.
Yeah. But she's coming back, so that's good. Yeah. And I'm happy for... Like, I don't know if she's ever going to be a parental figure for any of these kids. Mm. But I think that Wyland is going to be happy to have her around.
Yeah. Well, she actually loves him, so that's a switch.
That's true. That's so sad. It's not funny. No. I'm not laughing. So, Inej is currently researching ships and she's like using her knowledge as the spider to help her figure out her dream of like which ship to get and what to do. And she's going upstairs to bed, and she sees a note from Kaz, and it says, Sunrise, Fifth Harbor. And obviously he snuck in, which she thinks is only fair because she's been doing the same thing to leave him information at the slat because she doesn't really want to face him. Mm-hmm. She kind of thinks like Kaz obviously has changed since the ice court, and she can't imagine seeing him again with his armor on. So she's just not ready to talk to him. But she's like, okay, I'll go tomorrow to say goodbye, basically. And the next morning, she goes to meet him, and she finds him looking out over the harbor, and he asks her how the house is, and she says it's comfortable, but it's making her lazy. And she tells him Jesper is cautiously playing the markets, and Wylan only agreed when Jesper agreed to train with a fabricator. So that is some interesting information. Mm-hmm. So Jesper is going to learn some shit, I guess.
Do we think that they're living like a married couple? Like, do you think they're sharing a room? Like, do you think they're officially a couple? Or do you think they're still living like teenagers with a sly kiss on the side, like living in separate rooms, just like being buddies?
I feel like they're probably sharing a room, but I don't really know. Like, I don't think they're living like a married couple or anything because, like, I don't know though, because his stepmother is only 2 years older than him, so if she can get married, why can't they? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. And he's he has control of the estate at 16, 17, whatever he is. Yeah. So I feel like they're sharing a bed. If that was the only question, that would be my only answer. But, like, I don't know what other people see. Right. But I don't know if they really care what other people see because, like, they also... There's some point it's mentioned that his mother is, like, out and about and people are like, what the fuck? Yeah. She's dead. So I think they'd be more worried about that than Wylan's relationship. Kaz does say to tell Jesper that he's missed at the slat, and Inej knows like how much that is going to mean to him because it really means that Kaz misses him too. Yeah. I was just like, you can just say it, idiot. Just say it. I love Kaz. My heart. So then she's kind of done with the conversation, and she asks him what business, because it's like how you start conversations in Ketterdam. And he hands her a long glass, and she notices that he isn't wearing gloves, which is obviously a huge deal.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I feel like this popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, literally the last time we mentioned the gloves, he was talking about how much he couldn't fight the urge and has to wear the gloves all the time and has just accepted that he always has to wear gloves. Yeah. And how, like, even having Jenya do the barest of touches on his skin was, like, unacceptable. And now all of a sudden he's not wearing gloves. Like, when did this happen? How did this happen?
I guess he finally listened to what Inej said in the last book. He was like, gotta make it happen or she's leaving me. Mm. Which is fair. But he tells her to look at berth 22. And it's the same berth that they left for the ice court job. And there's a warship there with cannons and the Kirch flag. And it says the Wraith on the side. Like, the name of the boat is the Wraith. And it's for her. He bought it for her, and he said that Specht is going to help her find a crew, and he's basically going to be like her first mate. Aww. Which is...
Well, like, I also feel like he is throwing money left and right. Like, he bought a fancy house up on the hill, he bought the property next door, he bought Per Haskell shares of the Crow Club, now he bought Inej a boat. His 4 million Kruger are going to be gone like that.
Don't care. He's going to build it and then burn it.
I guess.
He got what he wanted. He didn't even need money for it.
I guess.
He tells her that Wylan gave him a good price. So maybe Wylan just gave it to him for free.
That's
and
true.
He had to get the Wraith painted on the side.
Maybe.
Which would be fair. I think Wylan could owe him that much. It's only because of him that Wylan even owns this boat. He also says that the berth is hers, like anytime she wants to come back. And she says she doesn't know what to say. And he says, say you'll return. And she says she isn't done with Ketterdam. And she means it. She says she wants his help. And she says it isn't just the slavers, but it's everyone else. And she's like, it's the people that own the pleasure halls, the barrel bosses, like the merchants, like anybody that is coming in and paying for people. But he's like, I'm a barrel boss now. And she says, he'd never sell somebody. And that's the difference. And he says, like, she is talking about taking down half of Ketterdam, though. Like, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then he also says, like, he isn't the good man that she wants him to be. But she says the city doesn't need a good man. It needs him. And they're going to go after the Tanta Helenes and the Pecarolanses. Yeah. Like, they're going to go after the bad people here.
And, like, and obviously not everybody, like they said, like, they tried to sell Kuwei into, like, Kuwei made the decision to sell himself into indenture. Like, that's not who they're going after. They're going after the people that intentionally, like, kidnap people and sell them and make it seem like they've chosen, like, Inez never obviously chose to adopt, to, like, sell herself. She was stolen and sold into slavery, so those are the people they want to get.
At fucking 14. Like, obviously, we cannot even
imagine
get into how fucked that is for her. And, like, obviously this is where she's going as a character.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway, so then she brushes her fingers against his and says she isn't ready to give up this city, and she thinks it's worth saving. And she thinks in her head that, like, Kaz is worth saving too, but she doesn't say it. And she also thinks, like, she'll fight for him, but she can't heal him. And I think this is a big step, and it's very important to realize for any type of relationship. Like, she wants to be with him. She obviously loves him, but she knows that she can't be the one to heal him. And I think that is so important.
Yeah.
She's then a bit worried, but then his hand brushes hers, and then he, like, wraps his hand around hers and holds her hand. And, like, it's such a small gesture, but in this whole book, it's, like, the one thing that I'm like, oh my god. And, like, we read romance books, but this scene, I was like, he is holding her hand.
It's a huge step for him. Like, for him, this is intercourse.
Yeah.
Like, this is, they're just having sex on the pier right now.
Sex on the pier. Wish that could be the title. Yeah. So they stay like that for a little bit, and then Inej asks him why he, like, adopted the crow as his symbol. Mm-hmm. Because, like, he could have done anything with his own symbol. But he says, crows remember faces, the people who feed them, but also the ones who wrong them, and they, like, pass it down.
Love it.
And, yeah, me too. And then he tells her to look again, and she has to, like, let go of his hand, but she, like, looks out through her scope, long
spyglass thing,
yeah. But she sees two people who move like Suli acrobats, and, like, she can't really reconcile it. And she reaches for Kaz's sleeve, and he, like, has to hold her up because she's, like, unsteady and not okay, which just tells you, like, Inej being unsteady is not realistic. So, like, obviously something's going on.
Well, they're getting off a boat, right?
Yeah. So, Kaz then says he wasn't sure, but he asked Sturmhond as part of the deal to basically get her parents sent here. Yeah. And she is completely okay with it. Yeah. Like, she is so happy. And she then asks him to meet them, and he asks if his tie is straight. And she just laughs, and he says, "That's the laugh." And then she yells out to her parents, and they run towards her. I kind of feel like a tiny bit cheated, because I really wanted this meeting. Like, I really wanted, like, everything is adorable. I love it all. But I kind of wanted the meeting of her and her parents and Kaz.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
We can imagine it.
Yeah, and I have many times. Not in a weird way. But
yeah.
So the same as the last book. Our last chapter is in someone else's point of view, just like our first chapter.
Right.
And just like our last book, it is also Pekka's point of view this time, like it was the last time. So he is in his, like, country house, and he is terrified, which is what Kaz wanted. And he doesn't know, like, how his life turned into this. Like, he used to be a king, but, like, Kaz got him. Like, he has a reoccurring nightmare now that he can't dig his son up. And if it's not that, then he's the one that is being buried, and all the people above him are the ones that he swindled, and he can't remember Kaz's brother's name still. But he thinks, like, if Kaz could find him, anybody else that he ever swindled could likely come back for revenge.
Well, I think too, the issue is that I'm sure he has, like, we both know that he has swindled a lot of people, and he's admitted that he swindled a lot of people. But, like, the amount that he swindled from Kaz and Jordy was so minute. Like, I mean, it was a lot for them, but, like, obviously, like, it wasn't, like, obviously they weren't big enough marks for Pekka to remember them. So, like, he must be thinking about, like, well, what about all those people that he actually took, like, a good deal of money from? Like, that have resources that could legit come after him and do him and his family harm. Like, not that no one else can, but, like, if Kaz can, and he doesn't even remember the deal the swindle on Kaz, imagine all these other deals that he actually does remember and how big they were. Like, they could totally do it, too.
You know, the one thing I don't really understand, though, is, like, you'd think that Pekka Rollins would have realized that the wife that he pretended to have, the child, the runner, like, everybody else that played that one thing, they all died and disappeared horribly. Like, you'd think maybe he gave them cuts of the money and he thought they just ran away or something, but, like, you'd think he would have noticed that they all just...
Well, I also feel like he probably did it with enough time in between that he probably didn't make
it was
connection.
Clearly... Yeah, it was clearly after.
Like, way after.
Like, yeah, but you'd think, like, he would have been like, oh, shit, something's happening.
Maybe.
But I guess he uses so many people in his schemes, maybe? I don't know. It's wild. But yeah. So, originally, that's what's going through his head. But then, there's, like, one day, and he's, like, finally able to, like, clear his head. It's a nice day, and he, like, has the strength to actually look at his correspondence, and he's like, okay, I can salvage the club, the brothel, not so much, because nobody's going to want to go to a plague brothel. Makes sense. But he says he'll open another one, And he knows someone who gets indentures for basically nothing.
In other words, he kidnaps them.
Yeah. So we're like, oh, Inej is not going to let that happen. And guess what happens? Not yet, but soon. So that night, he's like high on his like abilities, and he's like, I got this, I'll figure it out. And he goes in to look at his son, Albie, who is sleeping with his lion, which is very similar to the one that Kaz gave him that day, and it like almost makes him sick to look at it. But he's like, cool, he's fine, and he goes to his own room, and he like passes by many guards to get there. But he knows like tonight is going to be a night that he won't have nightmares. Like, he's not going to think about being buried alive, and he's not going to think about his son being buried alive, because like he's finally turning his life around. And tomorrow he's going to start to rebuild his throne. Yeah. But then he wakes up to a weight on his chest and a blade at his neck. And he says that he'll kill them, but she says he already tried. And he asks what she wants. And she asks if he likes his life. And he's like, how did you get past the guards? And she like scoffs at him. And he thinks like she must have killed them all. But she says she didn't bother. And he's just thinking in his head like, there's guards at the one door. The windows are like literally have bars on them. So he has no idea how anyone could get in here. But she responds that she's the Wraith. And he asks if Brecker sent her, but she says she has a message. And he says he can pay her double what Brecker does. Which is funny because, like, we know, like, she's her own person now. She's not paid by Kaz. Like, she's doing what she wants, basically.
Yes.
And she says she left Dunyasha splayed on the cobblestone. And if she could do that to someone like her, think of what she could do to him. And he asks her, like, why she doesn't just kill him. And she says death is a gift he hasn't earned. Like, chef's kiss. Like, that line. Whew. Then she stuffs something in his mouth and says he can scream now. And then she pulls back his shirt and carves into his chest. And he thinks like he hasn't felt pain for so long because like everybody is so terrified by him that like nobody's actually ever heard him in a very long time. But she then tells him, like, this is the first cut, and if he comes back to Ketterdam, she'll give him a second. Then she, like, jumps off him, and is just gone. And, like, we don't know how she got in there, we don't know how she left. Like, he jumps up, and he turns on the light, but, like, she didn't open the door to the room, she didn't open the window, she's just not there anymore. I'd almost like this from her point of view to see, like, how she actually got in, but we don't do that. So then we get that, like, she made a precise slash above his heart. Did she write, this is the first cut above his heart, or just, like, cut it?
No, I think she just did the one cut, but he understands it to mean, shit, the other cuts will be to cut out my heart.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Which is brilliant.
Yes. So he then starts thinking, like, she actually bested Dunyasha, who he paid for, who was super expensive to go after her. And he's like, shit. And then he thinks of Albie, obviously. So he runs out to his room, and, like, the guards are, like, still standing by his door, haven't seen anybody walk by, and he's bleeding as he runs past them, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? But he's just running to his kid's room, and he gets in there, and the toy lion is gone, and in his child's arms is a crow. I think that is my favorite part.
So
That's my favorite.
Good.
It's so
like,
good.
Did you think we were gone?
Yeah. It's like, we could have done something, but we didn't. And it's exactly what Kaz said of, like, you can only... Obviously, I don't want anybody to kill Pekka Rollins' son. But it's just another reminder.
Yeah.
But Pekka then tells his guards to get Shay and Jerajon out of bed. I don't know who these people are. I don't know if anybody does. But to pack a bag and grab their money, and they're going as far as they can. And he kind of like, this is like the last thoughts of the book, but he realizes like success made him complacent, and he made the barrel what it is.
Yes.
But the ones who grew up in the barrel had to survive what he made it. So like they are harder than he is. So like Brecker. And then he thinks in his head, his Wraith Queen. And I just like died at that because, yes. But also his crew have managed to survive, and he thinks he's gonna leave here, but some night he'll drink to them, but mostly to the poor fools who don't know what's coming. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, I love that he finally is like getting his comeuppance without death.
Yeah.
Like he finally understands, shit, I did this to myself by being an asshole.
Yeah. The ending was like, not everything I wanted, obviously, but like there's so much in it that like I was satisfied by, even if I wasn't like,
even if you didn't get everything you wanted.
It's not the happily ever after that you expect.
No.
But it's still, so many of the scenes like made my heart happy.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. Did you like it more than you thought
I definitely liked it more than I thought I would. And the whole, like, one of the main reasons I didn't want to read it was because I knew Matthias was going to die. Yeah. I do think they did it, that it was done tastefully enough where it wouldn't put me off.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I'm happy I read them. I definitely see what you mean about preferring them to Shadow and Bone. Like, I definitely like all the characters. Like, obviously, Shadow and Bone, I like the Darkling, I like Alina.
Yeah.
I really just don't like Mal.
Yeah. You only read the first one, too. Yeah. Because, like, you also hated Zoya.
Yes.
She was a bitch. Of Shadow and Bone. Yeah, she's 100%. She grows on you in the next two. And Alina is, like... Anyway, we're not going to completely get into that. But, like, yeah, there's... And then you meet Sturmhond in Shadow and Bone. Like, there's a lot of characters that are also great in there. But, yeah.
Yeah.
We can't get over the ending.
No. But, yeah, no, I really liked it. I liked that they were both just, like, really big heist books, and that made me happy.
Yeah. Me too. I just love this book. I love the twists and the, like, even this time, I knew technically what was going to happen, but reading it back, I forgot a few of the, like, minor details, and I was like, oh yeah, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I just loved it. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that wraps us up for this week and this book. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in any of our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us on email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram and Facebook or Twitter at coffeeandcoread.
So, next week is New Book Week.
Woo!
Our book for August is going to be A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by JLA, Jennifer L. Armentrout, however you want to say it. Next week, we're reading chapters 1 to 11, so make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.